All right, thank you. All right, we'll go to the second round now, and we'll start again with Mr. Gilman, and let's have the first question to Mr. O'Keefe.
Back in 1971, the Vietnam War was raging, Watergate was just a hotel, and in southern New Hampshire, a young engineer drafted up the first plans for what was to be called Exit 4A. 37 years later, it has become not one of the shining moments in the history of Derry and Londonderry. Londonderry found itself on the hook for $5 million for a project that may well never happen. The state has left the communities hanging out to dry. What are your views on the project, and what would you personally do, if anything, to try and salvage the town's investment?
All yours, Sean.
I've got a quick question on that one. You remember what we received as council and budget committee people regarding 4A?
You got to remember what we received?
Last summer, speaking to it or against it?
Right.
Right. So
It should
really,
be.
I can't be taking a position on this in public.
I agree with.
So
I
that would
agree
be
with
your
Sean.
response.
So my response would be, could we have another question? It's a good question, but unfortunately, I cannot speak to it, being in the position that I am.
Mr. Moderator, however, some of us can speak to this question because we were not privy to that information.
We'll go around that. Let's go
And
I hope
Mr.
you
O'Keefe,
respect that.
and I certainly do. And I certainly do.
I'm not trying to dodge the question,
Nope.
but I'm not allowed really to speak for or against it.
No, and Mr. O'Keefe, I certainly appreciate that, and any of you who are in that position, I certainly appreciate, and I think that all of you do realize that is a question some people may have.
I totally agree.
All right, then let's go to Mr. Vermillion.
It is a very good question. Being a new resident for this town, I could probably give some sort of an answer to that. I have been following that project through the papers in the last few years since I've moved here, and it's been come to the forefront in the last year or so. To me, I would think has been no really reason for it. There's been money thrown at it. I would like to see somebody make a decision, and that would be a town council decision, and also maybe a town decision. To me, I think it's a lot of money that was wasted on nothing that's happened, and that's the total bureaucracy that's happened in the last few years. And I'm hoping that the residents of the town would vote for me to hopefully resolve that.
All right. Mr. Brown will have a short answer.
Yes, and I too, like Sean, am committed to certain things as a sitting budget committee member. I will say this, that the town of Londonderry has lots of priorities other than Exit 4A. The Derry Town Council, this is public record, so I'm speaking factually, just recently voted to put a non-binding petition article on their warrant for their citizens to give their input as to whether they should continue forward. I support that and think it's a good idea for Londonderry to do the same.
Mr. Carrier.
I can speak very briefly on this. I do remember that fiasco. I guess I can use that term. We're obligated, Londonderry is obligated to pay $5 million, and it cost us $1.5 million to become obligated. That was a settlement back in that time frame with the developer at that time, because we chose to do Exit 4A, then we chose not to do Exit 4A, and we harmed, according to the courts, the development of that property. Therefore, the developer was losing money, and it cost us $1.5 million. However, I don't see Exit 4A happening anytime soon. I believe the state just took it off its 10-year plan. I do think there's some potential up there for Londonderry to benefit by development, but I do not support Exit 4A as far as putting any more of Londonderry's money into that. We're obligated for $5 million, and that's it.
Thank you. Mr. DeMarco.
Okay. Thank you.
The whole Exit 4A fiasco, as you said, predates me even moving here, but obviously I've read about it and I understand the town's obligation since we are on the hook for that $5 million. First of all, I believe as a current planning board member, I don't think I'm bound by any. Okay, no, so I just want to make sure of that before I do anything. Before I say anything. I would like to try to bring this to closure in any way we can. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. But, I call on the towns that are affected, us and Derry, our state reps, to get the state either on board or not on board, and let's just bring it to closure. If we're not going to do it, let's see what we could do to recoup what we can. If we are going to do it, then let's get a plan in place to make it happen. But I don't want to see us hanging a decade from now having the same conversation. That's just nuts. We're costing the taxpayers money. We're not getting any benefit from this at all. I want to see this brought to closure.
Thank you. April, your second question.
All right.
And we'll start with Mr. Vermillion.
All right. My second question for you guys is, do you feel the town meeting form of government is still an effective way of making decisions? And why or why not?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that an open forum in the town and being elected by the community is a viable way of people bringing up issues and resolving them in that forum.
All right. Mr. Brown?
Great question. One that's actually circulated in Londonderry for a long, long time, and you're going to get strong views from folks one way or the other on this particular issue. In fact, some of the folks in the audience would speak passionately to this both ways. Yes, I am a fan of the current form of government in that I think it's the truest form. It allows a majority of the folks who care enough to participate in their democratic process, and the democratic process is a participatory sport, so to speak. And we all have heard the stories of our forefathers and even current folks who are serving and fighting to protect that way of life. So I urge all citizens of Londonderry and elsewhere to take advantage of that privilege and step forward and participate. That is our current form of government, so I do support it. On the other hand, I'm also open to the fact that others feel differently and feel that there should be a wider perspective in the form of doing everything at the polls. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I would be opposed to having those folks, if they have the effort and desire to participate to change it, I would support them being able to do that and letting the citizens vote to see if they wanted to change.
All right. Mr. Carey?
Thank you. Absolutely, I support town meeting form of government. It is the purest sense of the word of democracy. Everybody has the ability, everybody has the right to go to the meetings, express their opinion, and make changes one way or the other, as long as they exercise that right. Absolutely.
Mr. DeMarco.
Okay. Thank you. I know one of the first things that came to mind when you asked that question, which is a great question, by the way, was Reed Clark, who everybody knows, who mentioned about when he was 21 years old, town had 2,500 people and 500 showed up for town meeting. And now, of course, we have 24,000, and we're lucky if we get anywhere near that number. But personally, I think this town meeting is an institution that kind of goes back to the pure roots of New England. I've lived in other areas of the country, and they don't have anything like town meeting, and it's just such an institution that I have such a deep respect for. I would like to see it continue, if at all possible. I agree with both of the other candidates who have commented so far. It's the purest form of democracy. People have a direct say in these issues. However, I would listen to people's alternatives. If I heard one person once make an argument about people who are serving overseas in the military who are unable to participate because of that. That's a fair concern. So I am willing to listen to alternatives, but I do love our town meeting form of government, and I hope we could get it to stay.
All right. Hey, Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that it's been a part of our fabric for a long time up here in New Hampshire. But I think that the town meeting, it's probably run its course in my mind. I think that a lot of people have concerns that it's not a true representation of the populace of the 23 to 24,000 people that don't get to the meetings. 161 people showed up at deliberative session. I had some water problems at home, so I had to stay